Viewer beware.
Welcome back to Viewer Beware. It's the show where we watch Goosebumps and blah blah, you know the drill. Well, tonight we're watching The Werewolf of Fever Swamp. Stories of people transforming during lunar activity is as old as the moon itself. Back when Ozzy Osbourne invented it in 1962, so he had something to bark at. But anyway, in tonight's case, this is the second story of Goosebumps we've gotten where a character turns into a canine. But unlike My Hairiest Adventure, Fever Swamp is actually solid. In fact, the performances are so tight and the atmosphere is so crazy tense, a few tweaks here and there, this could be like a Blumhouse movie. A few more tweaks, maybe an A24 movie. This is solid. In Fever Swamp, we get 3 implied maulings, 3 actual maulings, a crazed kidnapping Florida swamp hobo, and of course a fever-inducing mysterious bog. So with all that said, let's crack open the stuff and bark at the moon. Another R.L. Stine opening. What can I say? The man has aura.
Right now I'm going for a quick bite.
Anyway. We start with our hero Grady and his family moving into a Florida trap house filled with black mold.
Is this a bloodstain?
However, Sister Emily draws the line at a corn snake in the cupboard. Grady is then tasked with wandering out into the unknown swamp to release the snake, far enough away so it doesn't come back, but not quite far enough away so he doesn't come back. After releasing the snake, he immediately realizes he went too far, and panics until he runs into a crazed Florida swamp hobo. The episode cuts to commercial and then immediately cuts back to the brother and sister brushing their teeth in the same mirror, just completely glossing over the whole encounter. Later on, the dad is tending to his herd of deer, somewhat explaining their biology experiment that moved them out here, while mostly trying to sell Grady on the idea that moving away from all his friends to live in a swamp is actually really cool.
Ever think that you would be spending your teenage years in a place like Fever Swamp?
Not my wildest dreams.
We learn more about the swamp hobo. He's actually a hermit that lost his whole family, which is understandable. I myself am only a few life changes away from going full hermit. While trying to occupy his time, Grady runs into Will, a local kid from a farm nearby, that asks if Grady has guns. On point for Florida.
I've got some targets out back. You've got a BB gun, don't you?
Will starts spreading rumors about the swamp driving people crazy, which is actually the reason why Grady's new house was vacant. After all of this, Will offers to take Grady on a swamp tour, explaining some more of the history of Fever Swamp before hearing a noise and running off. The noise ended up just being Swamp Hobo somehow. He just roams the swamp making animal noises. Will tells Grady that the Swamp Hobo is actually the reason people go missing. He says he's been here for 50 or 60 years because he doesn't age like a normal person due to being a werewolf. Later that night, Grady wakes up sweating bullets and runs to the bathroom to check himself for swamp fever. While he's up, he hears the mysterious howling that Will warned him about. Taking action, he rushes downstairs, locking all the doors until he realizes the back door is already open, leading to pants-soiling jump scares. After wrestling on the ground for a moment, Mom and Emily turn the lights on to reveal this was just a stray dog. He must have also been the one howling. Grady talks his family into letting them keep the dog around, deciding to call him Vandal since he broke into their house. The next day, Grady and Will explore the swamps with Vandal. They stumble across wolfsbane tied to trees, which supposedly repels werewolves. Will claims this is just a hoax spread by the werefolk so poor people can't hunt them, similar to silver bullets or the moon landing. Anyway, Grady falls down a hill and almost lands face first into a bog. Of course, Will chimes in that it'll suck you down like quicksand before sticking his arm in it and pretending to get stuck. We start to get the feeling that Will is kind of an asshole. The kind of kid you don't really want to hang out with, but you find yourself stuck with. Vandal starts growling into the mist, freaking out Grady and Will, causing them both to retreat from the forest. Meanwhile, back at the farm, Emily finds a mauled rabbit and blames Vandal, convincing her parents that the dog being a stray must have made him too feral to keep around.
The bite marks. I bet they're big, right? Too big for Vandal.
No, Grady, they're not. We think it was Vandal.
It's not Vandal!
Filled with the need to prove Vandal innocent, Grady marches right into the swamp with Will to find that swamp hermit and prove his dog is innocent. Eventually they get to his hobo shack where the two boys are confronted by the hobo himself, which makes them take off running. In the chase, Grady gets snagged in a snare trap, and Will leaves him to be dragged away by the swamp hobo. Now, this could very easily turn into a very special episode, like the Different Strokes episode with the bike shop.
All right, now I want you boys to scream real loud at my ass.
But luckily the hermit just keeps him in the net and watches him until the full moon comes out, which he then goes out to howl at. Giving Grady the time to escape the net trap and run off. Eventually getting back home, Grady is in a full panic. His mom shows genuine concern for her son being out so late and looking so dirty. Now here Grady has the perfect chance to say the swamp hobo kidnapped him, which could lead to the parents taking direct action, but he absolutely fumbles the bag.
Honey, you gotta tell me what's wrong.
It's that swamp hermit, Mom.
What happened? Did he hurt you?
No, not exactly.
Did he threaten you?
No.
What then?
He's a werewolf.
The mom obviously brushes off his werewolf talk, but not too long after that, a deer carcass comes crashing through the window of the house. Grady and Mom run outside to see Vandal barking like crazy and the deer cage ripped open. The mom immediately blames the dog and tries to lock him in the shed for the night, but Grady turns the tables and locks Mom in the shed, freeing Vandal. After assuring his mom she will be safe, Grady hears Will scream from his house, prompting him to investigate. While in Will's house, he sees that everything is tattered and in shambles. It looks like nobody could possibly be living there. At the same time, Emily returns home and can't find any of her family around. We get some cool back and forth shots of Grady and Emily both exploring their respective houses. The distorted werewolf howls start up once again, frightening both children in each respective shot. And honestly, me too. Then the music fades, the growling starts slower, and we finally see it for the first time, the werewolf. The wolf chases Emily through the house until she finds her way to the shed and locks herself in with her mom, while the werewolf tries desperately to get in and make them his next meal. Grady wanders back into the swamp, convinced Will is still out there somewhere, until the werewolf eventually runs up on him. After running away for a bit, the werewolf finds itself snared in the swamp hobo trap that Grady was in earlier. The hobo then comes out and finally speaks, claiming that the wolf killed his wife and his children, and that's why he was hunting for so long.
You took my wife and children, everything I ever loved. I swore one day I would take your heart the way you took mine.
But the werewolf instead mauls the hobo and resumes chasing Grady until a lunar eclipse rolls in, blocking the moon and causing the wolf to turn back into Will.
Get away!
Will!
Get away, Grady!
In a moment of humanity, Will begs Grady to run because he cannot control his fursona, but Grady doesn't listen and gets snatched up once Will turns beast mode. Luckily, Vandal comes through in the clutch and knocks the werewolf into the quicksand bog, presumably drowning him.
Thanks, Vandal. Thanks, boy.
We flash forward to the end of the summer. The kids and parents are at dinner talking about school starting soon. The kids still claim that Will was a werewolf, but the parents don't believe them, even though Will has gone missing. Later that night, the parents see Grady to bed and claim that he's finally over all those nightmares. But, surprise, one last jump scare.
It's only a dream.
Waking up in a sweat again, Grady sees the moon is full. So Grady's a werewolf. We didn't actually see it happen, but the implication is there. Actually, in the book, he originally transforms entirely into a werewolf and runs out into the fever swamp with his dog. I actually didn't remember too much about this episode before I rewatched it, and that's probably because my mind blocked out most of it because I was so scared. I mean, seriously, the director, the sound designer, everybody was cooking in this thing. Literally everything about the third act made me forget I was even watching a Goosebumps episode. It felt like a lost horror movie I found in a Blockbuster. They waited the perfect amount of time before finally revealing the werewolf, and the distorted howls on top, ooh, chef's kiss. They actually even showed Will getting knocked into the bog and drowning, and then showed his corpse. Goosebumps! Honestly, with that said, my hands are tied. I have no choice. This is a 5 out of 5. This is a must watch. If you want to watch Goosebumps, you have to. And I mean capital HAVAV to watch. I can't spell. Werewolf of Fever Swamp. And that, you can take that to the bank. Take it to the Goosebump bank, the big bump department. They'll cash it for you. Cash that check that my ass is writing for you to watch it. But if you want to watch some more, I mean, keep it on the low, but you can hit that subscribe bell button, and I'll slide some stuff your way. Just keep it hush. But it's only for those in the know, and if you know, you know. I think you know.